tell all about Mr. Presley. Now, for years, I've been telling all about Mr. Presley because those in the know, well, they just know. Yeah. So here's a little snippet.
What's been hidden until now was his infatuation with young girls. Tonight, we reveal the string of women, now in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, who all dated Elvis when they were barely teenagers. How old were you when you met Elvis Presley? 14.
Oh, my goodness. I was just a baby. I was 14 years old.
You're a child.
Yes, I guess so. I practically grew up at Graceland. My mother used to call out here early in the morning and start yelling at me about being home in time for school.
Francis lives just half an hour from Elvis's Memphis home. But since his death, she's stayed away from the place that holds so many special memories.
It hadn't changed. It looks exactly the same, except
Today, she's decided to bring her granddaughter to Graceland to finally tell her story.
I was out here just about every night that he was home.
Yeah. It was here at these gates where Elvis spotted 14-year-old Frances in the crowd and invited her inside. What was your very first impression of him when you met him up close?
He was better looking.
Now, you've got to remember, you're talking about a man here that at the time would have been 24, maybe older, because I think this was after his time in the army. So he would have been, 25, 26, 27, 28. In fact, I think the infatuation with 14-year-olds never went. I've said it for a long, long time, years upon years. And now they're finally coming for him. I knew they would.
And I thought he was.
But these
He's
women,
incredibly
honestly,
good looking. The pictures of him do not do him justice. He had the most perfect face a person could ask for. He would call me Little Francis.
It wasn't long before 22-year-old Elvis was asking little Frances here to Graceland on a regular basis. Sometimes for parties with friends, but more and more often, they were alone. Were you in love with him?
Very much. He was my very first love, my very first kiss, everything.
Was it a physical relationship?
So. No, it wasn't a sexual relationship, not really. It was more like, teenagers, they neck, they kiss and carry on, but that's as far as it goes. At least that's the way it used to be.
In those early years, Frances knew she was one of many, in competition with the local girls and a revolving door of Hollywood starlets. What was it like to share Elvis?
Well, in the early years when I was 14 and 15, you didn't like to share him, but you did. You understood he was Elvis, Everybody wanted Elvis.
I understand there were nights when you would spend all night at Graceland and then go home just in time to go to school.
Many. And there's a lot of times I didn't go to school. I know my mother called out there several times, raising Cain with me about being home in time for school.
See, these women are talking like it's fine. I mean, I've even heard, over the years, I've heard these women who were young girls at the time talk about how, well, there wasn't paedophilia around at that time. There was no such thing as paedophilia. But Elvis had a saying, 14 will get you 20. And what he meant by that was he knew that going with a 14-year-old girl would get you 20 years in prison. And that used to be his favourite saying.
For teenage girls, and that she was one in a long line.
There was a series of 14-year-olds, and up until, really, he was 40.
Yeah, no, it never stopped. And Elvis is someone who, because he became famous so young, he I think, suffered from kind of an arrested emotional development. He, was suddenly a big rock and roll star, and he was still kind of frozen at a more elementary level.
When Elvis was away from his Memphis girls shooting movies in Hollywood, his appetite for young teenagers never eased. In 1960, when he was 25, he spotted Sandy Farah in a photograph at her father's nightclub and asked to meet her. Despite Sandy being only 14, her parents eventually agreed.
I had a frilly dress, a ponytail. He had a date with a beautiful, sexy actress, held my hand, kissed me on the cheek, and he was absolutely gorgeous. And then he called and said he wanted to date me. And my mother said, I don't care if you're King Farouk. My daughter's only 14. She doesn't date. And he said, oh, well, Mrs. Farah, you can come on the dates.
How did that work?
Yeah.
What was that like?
So, are they saying because Elvis Presley was a very good-looking man, which he was, no one can take that away from him, it was fine for him to be dating all these 14-year-olds? I personally don't think it was, but,
To move from Los Angeles to Memphis to live with him at Graceland, not long before Priscilla moved in.
And my mother said over her dead body. So that was the end of that.
Could have been you in a way. Do you ever think that? That was the plan?
Yeah, the thought, of course, it would be
And this is
impossible for
only
that
the-
thought not to
this
be
is only
there.
the tip of the iceberg,
Rhinestone
guys.
coat. It was the height of fashion back in the 1970s when Risa was treated to a once-in-a-lifetime shopping trip with the king of rock and roll, the beginning of an intense 6-month relationship. How old were you when you met Elvis?
Oh my goodness. I was just a baby. I was 14 years old.
That is very, very young, isn't it?
Yeah, very young.
It was 1974, and Risa was hanging out with Elvis Presley's younger stepbrothers when Elvis showed up.
We get in this white Cadillac pulls up
Hang
a little
on, wait a
later,
minute.
and we get
So-
in.
1974. So he died in 1977. So that would have made him in his late 30s, and he's hanging out and having an affair with a 14-year-old girl. You see, everything I said. Now, now for the first time ever, we're now hearing it. No, those that know, and I've known for years.
Car. He was a gentleman right away
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he looked through the rearview mirror. He turned around, smiled at me, and said, I've heard all about you. He seemed like such a gentleman that he just was so curious to know about me right away, right off the bat.
The infatuation.
Be around maybe younger, someone my age.
Clearly, he was attracted to you, and he told you that. Was it a sexual relationship?
No, not at all. I
Oh.
mean, there was some kissing, but that was as far as it would go.
So he was 38 and he was
just
kissing a
young teenager with a
14-year-old.
boyfriend. When we would start kissing, then he would say, no, we have to stop this,
Do you think back now, though, and think, my goodness, I mean, if a 39-year-old man now was making out with a 14-year-old, he'd be in jail.
Yeah, I know.
We kissed for hours. And it was wonderful. Little baby.
Sandy Farah, now Martindale, who also dated Elvis when she was just 14, insists there was nothing inappropriate going on. Do you look back now and think it was a bit odd that this man was attracted to young girls?
No, didn't even occur to me. No, not at all. He wasn't a grown man at 24. He really wasn't. He was
No,
a kid.
please.
He was a kid.
I was thinking, thank God I didn't have a daughter because I can't imagine,
Do you look back with the benefit of hindsight and think, my goodness, I wouldn't let my daughter or granddaughter spend the night at a 20-year-old man's house?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't like that, but
You see, that's just the tip of the iceberg. You can find the full thing on Elvis Presley, History with 14-year-old Girls, 60 Minutes Australia. Honest to God, This went on from him being 18 till the day he died. He had a thing about 14-year-old girls, and as he used to say, 14 will get you 20. And personally, I don't think it was because you never grew up, and he was he was he was very emotionally young. No, you don't. No, there's no excuse for it, and yeah, and the way these women defend him, they talk like there was nothing wrong with it. But why then did Elvis have that favourite saying of his that 14 will get you 20? He knew it was wrong, and yet he always did it. I mean, and he liked them to wear clean white panties as well. I mean, what's that all about? Even whilst he was married to that wife of his, the woman that dropped the name of Presley, then when Presley died, she decided to use it again. Obviously, we know why. Even when he was married to her, he still had 14-year-old girls coming up to that house, or in Los Angeles when he was making those dumb movies. So, as much as Elvis is iconic and the first guy of rock and roll, at last, the media is starting to pick up on what this man was really about. So he was about drugs. He was about reading the Bible, and he was about having affairs with 14-year-old young girls. Or will Mr. Presley get cancelled in this so-called cancelled culture that we have? I doubt it. But for me, this is old news. For me, I'm just glad that at least in Australia, they're now picking up on it. They're picking up on, and they've made a 60 Minutes thing about it. It's about time, but I can't see him being cancelled. I mean, even now there's fanatics out there, absolute fanatical fans of Elvis Presley. And I think there always will be. And I don't think anyone will find anything he did wrong or distasteful. Well, I'm sorry. At 39 years old, and you're having an affair with a 14-year-old, one of many 14-year-olds, by the way, when he was on the road, when he was touring around America, picking up different 14-year-olds. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I just thought I'd do this. Thank you. Bye-bye.